Hi, welcome to another Woohoo Wednesday. I'm Little Woo, and I'm here to address another life question I've received. This week's question is, how to stop being overly judgmental. I'm going to read the original question. My wife often says I am way too judgmental. I wholeheartedly agree. My dad has this disagreeable trait, likely the reason it's ingrained in me. I know it turns people off, yet I can't seem to stop pointing out flaws or weaknesses in other people. How does one correct this? Well, thank you so much for that question. And first I want to describe maybe what judgmental might mean to most people. I'm going to use some synonyms that I looked up. Critical, fault-finding, condemnatory, disapproving, disparaging, picky, self-righteously pious, smug, snobbish. So that's just some of the synonyms that were easily found, and that could be considered the dark side of judgment. If I were to look at the bright side of judgment, then it becomes what I call discernment. And discernment is the ability to decide what feels right for you with a sense of understanding and compassion. So it allows you to set boundaries, it allows you to make decisions, but it doesn't mean that you're judging others. You're just deciding that that thing is not for you, or it doesn't align with your values. Judgment is something that we tend to learn by osmosis. We kind of absorb it from our environment, from parents, from our society, from the groups that we hang out with. It kind of slips into our conversations. And it can become a habit or a default way of seeing and being in this world. So judgment can easily become internalized to the point where you don't even notice if you're criticizing others, constantly complaining or gossiping. Sometimes we get into these habits where we just can't stop ranting, and we just keep going in this kind of negative outlook on everyone and everything. And it doesn't necessarily trigger us to take actions to change anything. It just becomes this habit. It's normalized in many groups for a reason, because it actually helps people bond. If you feel like you share similar values, then you feel like, oh, we've got something in common. And also when you're sharing your views together, you also feel like a connection. So it's a form of bonding. It's also a way to release energy. So if you're bottling up feeling something and you tend to vent it out loud, then it kind of releases that energy. So it's kind of healing to do that at times. We might not have a clear mission in life yet, and yet we do feel like a sense of fairness and justice. So we start to judge. We start to be the judge, because that's the only way we feel like we can help, is by saying, hey, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And we become a preacher, and we become pundits, and we don't realize that we're actually not taking enough action to create change. We're just complaining. Judgment is a survival tool, is coming from a need sometimes to control our environment. When we feel that the world is a place of threats and dangers, we decide that we need to be able to see those threats. And so by having strong value systems and then strong criticism of someone else's behavior, you can maybe make your own world safer. And so it's really a survival tool. And when we feel that people are actually loving and kind, then we tend to be less judgmental. Then we tend to be more willing to look at maybe why they're behaving a certain way. Perceptions can become judgments, and then they become, really hardened and stubborn ways of seeing the world, and blocks us from opening our hearts and opening our lives to change and transformation. So as a teenager, I noticed that I had a lot of judgments, and that it was a way for me to kind of discern for my own well-being what I wanted and what I didn't want in my life. But I focused so much on what I didn't want and what I didn't like. And so those judgments blocked me from having friendships for a long time, because I felt like most people were unkind. And that allowed me to see after a while, wow, I'm completely alone. And I know deep down that I'm a good person. So is it always other people that are wrong? Or is it that somehow as a good person, I've come to have an unkind outlook? And so I start to work on how I was seeing the world and how I was seeing other people, because I didn't want to be alone for the rest of my life. Because I at least figured out that it was something to do with how I was feeling and seeing. And so I developed this game, a healing game. And it's really inspired by the pictorial maxim, the three wise monkeys. So it's this image that is a teaching, and it's three monkeys that you might have seen. This monkey that is see no evil, and then hear no evil, and speak no evil. So this speak no evil is actually the first part of my Magical Monkeys game. And this is how you can shift judgment into love with practice. So the first is speak no evil. And that is a practice of really catching yourself before you go on those rants. Before you start gossiping, complaining, or making judgments about other people, you're just going to stop yourself. So if you can prevent that habit by being aware of how often you're actually doing that, because that's the first part, is being noticing how often you're doing it, and then not being hard on yourself. So don't turn around and judge yourself, but so, there's a reason why I was doing this, but I would like to change it. Okay, and the second tip is to then do no evil. So it's like, this is a little different from the maxim. What are the actions or behaviors that I tend to engage in that are propagating a sense of judgment or superiority? Do I do things to try to make other people look bad or make them feel bad? Or do I do things just to make myself look smarter or better or higher up? Am I acting smug, or I'm doing things that are very self-righteous? Third one is a very difficult one as well sometimes, is to think no evil. And that was the one that I worked the longest on. Deep down, the source of that speaking is the thinking. Even if you're not doing anything about it and you're not speaking anything about it, it's like trying to shove down a volcano. It's like the fire is just boiling, and eventually you're going to spew. So you got to really look at like what's burning and what's boiling and underneath. And so for me, it was like I got to look deeper at what kind of thoughts I was having, why I was thinking them, why was I having these judgments, why was I perceiving constantly from this basis. Also understand other people, understanding how others are actually also in survival mode, and that might be the reason for a lot of the behaviors that you don't like. So understanding others and understanding yourself allows you to transform those thoughts with compassion. Shifting judgment into love is a lifelong practice. After over 25 years of doing this little private game, I'm still practicing it, and I still catch myself in different ways. Like, oh, it's getting easier and easier, and I see where that thought's coming from, and I see how I need to understand it better. I've actually done a recent video on a topic that's quite related, so I invite you to check that out. It's called How to Discover and Heal Your Prejudices or Biases, and I give a different tip there about how to approach this. I hope that you've gotten something out of this video. If you send me your questions by email, treasures@littlewoo.org. I also invite you to join my private email list. Just go to my website, littlewoo.org, and you'll find the octopus, and you can add your name and your email address, and then you'll be part of my list that I've been keeping for 14 years. And it's where I send a weekly video and also special gifts, events, giveaways that I'm doing. I love to announce it there. See you next Wednesday for another topic, another life question, and lots of love from the Mermaid Pirate Lagoon. Mwah.